These are such a nightmare. Definitely a lot heavier. Right, I know it's been a while since the Caddy RS has made an appearance on the channel, but we're finally getting back into it today. So a quick recap, the conversion was done in January down at DG Developments. This involved taking that cheap TTRS I got from auction and stuffing this powertrain into a 490,000 mile van. The process took about 3 days to get it up and running, but there's still a lot to do before classing it as a complete project. It still needs a custom exhaust. I gotta get the suspension and wheel setup all dialed in and just generally put some miles on the build to troubleshoot any problems. I actually did make a start on this in the last video, taking it for a brief test drive. Overall it performed pretty good, but I did notice a slight engine rattle when it gets warm. It also happened to dump all its coolant on the floor due to an old junction piece giving up. Stuff like this is to be expected as we were reusing parts from an old TT, but now that it's back in my own unit and there's less time constraints, we can get a lot of this stuff all perfected. But yeah, the plan for today is we're going to do something a bit less intense, and that's making this van look and feel a bit more in line with its new powertrain. I've got a bunch of parts all centered around an RS theme, but before we get into all of that, I'd like to thank our long-time channel sponsors, Car Vertical. Now, if you're not already familiar with Car Vertical, it's a website that allows you to obtain a full report on any car. All you've got to do is enter registration or the VIN, and they'll tell you everything you need to know. Now, to give you an idea of how all of this works, we're going to take a look at this badge report that I found on this Mark V R32. Now, at the top of the report, essentially it's like a snapshot of the vehicle you searched for. So in the case of this R32, we've got no issues with any mileage fraud, such as being clocked back. It's never been stolen previously. It's got no outstanding finance, but unfortunately it has got some accident damage. Mileage is telling us the last recorded one was 39,155. Definitely very low for a Mark V R32. That would have been worth a lot of money today if it never was previously damaged. And on that particular topic, it says the incident occurred in February 2020. It was a Category S write-off. And my favourite bit, we've got photos to go along with that. So it looks like it was mostly a front-end impact. The rear of the car will look spot on. You could just tell this thing was looked after. Interior definitely adds up to the mileage. Now, strictly speaking, it's not a difficult repair, but I can tell you from personal experience with Mark V parts, a genuine R32 grill is not cheap at all. And then you get into the fact that all of these come as Xenon standard, so you're going to need those as well. So there we have it. That's Car Vertical. Nice and straightforward, and will definitely save you some hassle down the line. I've pretty much used it on every project car I've picked up for the last couple of years. Now, they have given me my own special link, which is down below in the description. If you click on that and then use the code TRH, what they'll do is they'll save you 10% off your next report. But yeah, as always, big thanks to them for their continued support of the channel. Let's crack on with this van. Now, we're going to start on the interior of the Caddy first, namely addressing these fake leather seats, which surprisingly have no wear on them for 500,000 miles. And that's where these lovely things come in. So that is a pair of front seats from a 2017 onwards RS3. They're also known as a Super Sports, an optional extra. And why I was very specific about it coming out of a 2017 onwards car is that they changed it to just say RS. The early RS3s said RS3. You may have also noticed these two strange things on either side. They are seat bases out of a Volkswagen Touran. From what I've been told, you need these to basically bolt those in. But as usual with this channel, we'll just go with the flow. I'll show you the full process. You can replicate this for other types of seats as well. Also, if you're gonna put regular A3 ones in, they're the exact same dimensions. So removing the seats in the Caddy is just like most of the vehicles. There's a bolt in each corner, which in this case is an M10 spline. Make sure you have both a short and long bit, as you will need to alternate between these throughout the job. You've also got a few electrical plugs underneath as usual, and then yeah, there we have it. The seat's free to come out. This then exposes the original seat base that we need to swap out, and here's exactly why you'll need a longer M10 bit rather than the Halfords one I originally had. Whilst you're there, a bit of vacuuming never goes amiss, and then in the Touran base goes. This bolts in with the original screws that you removed. And the idea is we bolt this down into the van, and then the RS seat will bolt into this. It's got its own separate threaded holes, and it's pretty cool how we've now got a little compartment. Now even this one won't reach. A bit fiddly, isn't it? Now, unfortunately, the RS3 seats didn't come with any seatbelt buckles. I did try swapping over the Caddy ones, but they were simply too high, so I've ordered the correct ones, and hopefully they should be here soon. Definitely a lot heavier. Not very dignified. In terms of the rail, it is pretty much in line once you push it back a bit, because this bit here just hangs out the front. I used the original M10 screws that came with the Touran base to bolt the seat in. They did seem a bit different to the original Caddy one, so make sure you do double check this. This is looking insane. In regards to wiring harness, I've left it all unplugged for now as I need to figure out a way to convert the airbag and seatbelt connectors. As for the heater element on the RS seat, I'll just do without this feature for now. And there we have it all done. Pretty big difference if I do say so myself. Now, I can already predict some of you guys mentioned this steering wheel in the comments. Yes, it is nice, but it doesn't really match with the rest of it. I am looking to put a RS3 steering wheel in, the facelift one with the Alcantara on the sides. But I just need to figure out how all the airbag plugs and all of that works. Now, for this next part of the video, we're going to move on to a few exterior parts for the van. We'll start over here. Something very straightforward. This is a gloss black rear spoiler for the barn door style. Over here, we've got a set of rear lights. Now, these are a genuine product. I got them from TPS. They're exactly like the standard ones, except that they're in sort of a cherry red. So they're a straight plug and play. And over here, we've got two different items from the guys at Van Style. That's a set of roof rails finished in like a satin black. And these over here are Caddy All-Track style arches. They stick on. I'll throw up a pic of what a Caddy All-Track looks like. It's essentially the four-wheel drive, more rugged version. Now, with these, I didn't opt for a genuine item because strictly speaking, the All-Track arches were never designed for a maxi Caddy. I've been told that there can be a slight gap when you basically stick them on the rear arch, so we'll have to figure that out as we go along. But this on the end is the real deal. It's a genuine Caddy All-Track front splitter. It comes in two different parts. Now, I know the paint's pretty tatty on the van, but you can imagine later down the line, once all these bits are fitted up and we get it all color matched, it may look like it's got a slight wide body on it. But I think what we'll do is we'll start with the roof rails because there's something pretty straightforward. Now, installing these roof rails requires no cutting or modification. You just need to remove these bungs that are already on the roof of the Caddy, and then in the rail itself, there's a dedicated slot for you to put the new bolts through. There we go. Then it was time to move on to the rear of the van. Firstly, starting off with the tail lights. They're simply held in with two screws behind a removable plastic panel. And it's just a case of just pulling them out with a bit of force. It's properly seated on these. Yeah, they're going sideways. New cover as well. Oh, these are such a nightmare. It reminds me of a lot of the darker rear lights in like a Mark 7R or an Edition 30, that kind of vibe. Quick test. Next, it was the spoiler installed to sort out this weird rounded off look that the standard barn door has. I opted to attach it with 3M tape just in case the fitment wasn't perfect, as it is a non-genuine item. And yeah, it turned out my suspicions were correct. Now, I'm not too convinced with the fitment of this because it doesn't perfectly follow the curvature of the barn door. As you can see, there's a few gaps there. So the 3M tape isn't fully seated. We'll leave it on for now because it does look pretty cool, but I am going to be removing them again. Okay, so now that we're done with the rear, I thought I'd get the Caddy up onto the lift, ready for the all-track parts. We're gonna have to take the front bumper off. But yeah, definitely pleased with the way the roof rails have come out. Initially, I wasn't too sure, but then once the spoiler got fitted, it kind of squares out the whole rear of the van. Okay, that's not what I wanted. As I've given the bumper a bit of a clean outside, so there's no longer any mud on here. And it's safe to say this is probably one of the worst bumpers on any car I've had. I mean, it's definitely been resprayed, of course, but even despite that, it's all just peeling off. It's basically like Tipex at this point. If we offer it up like this, it essentially sits on top of the lower section. It doesn't completely replace it. We are unfortunately going to still see some of that mullered paint along here. Then you may have also noticed we've got OEM spec 3M tape everywhere, all ready to go. Now, unfortunately, I think I am missing this small bracket that you can see in the diagram here. I didn't have access to this until now, so I wasn't actually aware of it. And there isn't actually a clear indication as to how the splitter actually attaches onto the bumper, but in any case I still proceeded with the 3M tape. Fitment is as you would expect from an OEM product. It basically clips along the lower part of the bumper. Not bad for a semi first attempt. Let's get the plate off and see what's behind there. At this point, it ain't going to do any more harm, is it? Now, that all-track splitter, in my opinion, is definitely a must-have if you've got the standard Mark IV bumper. Gives it a slight more aggression to the front end, even though the irony of it is it's designed for the more rugged off-road version of the Caddy. Right then, so Van Style arch kit, time to test fit it. It's applied with 3M tape, just like the genuine splitter. I think we've got this one right, so it's going to sit like that, essentially. Also got the corresponding piece here, which looks to line up here. And yep, there's our first problem. So this looks like it's been designed to go onto a stock bumper that doesn't have the all-track splitter as just a standalone arch kit. Right, I think my body shop skills are going to take a bit longer to progress, but it is what it is. I think I've cut off just a little bit too much on the edge. But before I go and show you the results, make sure you do go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you want to keep track with the various different projects. I'm learning as I go along. And as I mentioned, I am not a mechanic, but I just have fun in the process. Okay, lines are perfectly there. Not so much over there. I had the line pretty much bang on, but I think the Dremel just twisted. I'm happy to take responsibility for that. Right, so even though we've established that I can't cut in a straight line, we'll still go ahead and stick this on. You can always request a replacement piece for just this corner. I suppose it matches the rugged look of the left side of the van. Hopefully I'll get the right side more perfect. A bit trickier than it looks. That might almost be too snug. Yeah, I cut it pretty good on this side. I think just less red pen next time. Right, so rear arches are all clean and ready to go. Mud flaps are off. We'll mock up a few of the pieces and see where these potential issues are. This looks like, well, pretty self-explanatory that. Right, so as you can see, the trim piece here is too short for the back of a Maxi. I don't know if the short wheelbase doesn't suffer from this issue. We've obviously got 2 sliding doors as well on this van, but there is another piece in the kit. So if we go like this, yes, that is there, but it doesn't really look like much of a problem when it's on the van. You could later on get that filled in. I did see some people do that, so you could join that together, but there is still, unfortunately, a bit of a gap here. Right, so on the driver's side for the rear, we've got another arch piece here, which seems to all be one piece as opposed to the passenger sides. If we line it up, yeah, it looks like it completely goes to where the side skirt line is, so there's no actual problems with the driver's side. Now, I thought the fitment issues on a Maxi were going to be a lot worse than that. A little finger width gap on the passenger side doesn't really bother me, as well as that joint. It can all get smoothed off at a later date. That's on. We'll just pretend there's a new line there. You can ignore that. Next, it was time to finally address that ride height on the rear of the van, and for that I opted to go for the dark side lowering kit. It comes with a bunch of different plates and various different bits, as the Caddy does run a leaf spring on the rear. I went ahead and did one side first just to get an idea of the process, but the main gist of it is you want to flip the leaf spring over to the other side of the axle. There really isn't much to it at all, so it's an ideal beginner DIY mod, you could say. There's a plate in the middle with 4 nuts on it, a bolt to the front, and a bracket on the back that you want to swap out for the adjustable one in the kit. So glad they're not rusted. Right, so now that that's loose, we can split this apart to get this U-shaped bracket off. I know there's a bunch of mud here and it all looks like it's one piece, but I can guarantee you it isn't. It's one piece. It sits in that little slot, so once you've lifted it out of there, it's a bit more free to move. And that then applies for back here as well. There you are, off to the right, bolt out. Flip it around. You'll notice now you can get that bolt into that hole as mentioned. Even then it's like still not straight. Out comes that situation. You got to use all of that space in there. 2 adjustable brackets. Straight in. World's longest bolt. Right, so my stand now works, so I'll use it to prop up the leaf. It isn't that heavy, but you might as well use every bit of assistance you can get. Now the idea is it's now below the axle, as you can see, and then that goes into one of these. They're all different ride heights. The very first slot here is a drop by 50 millimeters. I'm gonna go with that for now. I don't want the van to be crazy slammed or anything, and we can adjust it as we go along. So that's the beauty of this kit. But before doing so, I want to put this lower plate in, which sits in between the leaf and the axle. It's got these little ridges which essentially keep it in line. Then you got this other one which goes in the top and sits in basically the little slot. That bolt is completely straight. You're simply going to get this lower plate which has a little dowel in it. Make sure you put that in whichever your desired position. Right, so me thinking putting the plate in first is going to save me some hassle isn't actually going to do that because it's so snug. And now I've just realized when you put this bolt through, you need to have all 3 of these freely moving to get them all slotted in, and that's not going anywhere, so I'm going to have to jack the axle up slightly. See, trial and error, first time doing it. Right then folks, so the dark side lowering kit's all been fitted, pretty straightforward process. It was a nice learning experience. That's what I like about having a van as a project. It's something different to what I've had before. Pretty much all that's left is to get these rear wheels back on, but of course I have got a different set that we're going to be fitting. Probably the worst kept secret throughout the whole video, but yes, the RS3 blade wheels are going to be going on the Caddy. These are the staggered versions, so they're 8.5J up front and 8J at the back with a 255/30/19 and a 235/35/19, as opposed to the TTRS wheels which are 9J all round and they run a slightly bigger tyre, 255/35/19. You will have seen that caused an issue at the back with the brake lines. Yes, you can run spacers and push the wheel out this way, but I was worried about that catching on the arches. All right, let's put one of the 8Js at the back. Obviously the front's at 8.5. Straight off the bat, that's much better than the TTRS wheel. Obviously it's a similar kind of gap to the Mark 8 R1, but obviously it's an RS wheel, so it matches the RS Caddy. Could do with tying that back, but at least it's not already starting off at a bad point. Fun fact, these wheels have been in storage so long, I actually test fitted them the very first day the Caddy arrived last year. Right then, moment of truth. Let's see what it looks like. I think the wheels suit it quite a bit. Also curious to see what the rear ride height is going to be like at 50mm. Now, I don't know about you folks, but this thing actually looks like an RS Caddy now. Definitely a bit of a transformation to say the least. I wasn't expecting it to look this different, but especially when you stand back from like this distance and you see the seats through the windows, you got the wheels as well with the brakes. And you can just see the red rocker cover of the engine. It's just pure RS vibes. Now, on the topic of these, I am pretty sold on them now. Initially, I was thinking the TTRS rotors might work a bit better with this color scheme. But yeah, they just make the van look a lot newer and actually match the age of it, which is a 2016 Mark IV. The old track kit just helps balance out the width, even though they are slightly narrower than the TTRS ones. And you got the middle bit here in silver, which is like an RS themed color anyway. So maybe I could do the mirrors in that color. You can actually get the smaller ones, which are like a Golf style. They're the Caddy Life mirrors. And yes, I know some of you folks may want some fancy Xenons. I will put them on when I find a reasonably priced set. Now, that is the highest setting on the dark side lowering kit, which is a 50mm drop. There still is more to go, and the wheel is relatively center. Maybe it could be improved slightly, but I think I'm going to stay with that because it allows for stuff to be chucked in the back. You may have also noticed I didn't trim down the bump stops. I wasn't too sure on how much to trim them by because there wasn't a definitive answer. But we'll get the van all dialed in soon. I've debadged it on the back as well, so it just says Caddy and TDI. Gives a bit of a sleeper effect. But yeah, that pretty much concludes today's video. I reckon I've talked a fair bit about a Caddy for one sit-in. Let me know if you enjoyed it as well by dropping a like on it. Also subscribe if you are new here. Follow my Instagram at @TRHams_. There'll be another episode coming up on this very soon. There's still a bunch of stuff I want to do to it still, in addition to an episode on the R36 also. But yeah, I'll stop talking now and I'll see you in the next one.